Um, this little ditty, integrity lecture, is all about writing kind of a brief review of a college composition that I'm working on. Hopefully we'll put all together. This is the first unit about the pre-writing process. But before we go and talk about that, let's talk a little bit about kind of the inspiration behind this guide. I don't know if you guys know Julia Child. There was a movie a couple years ago, Julia and Julia, about Julia Child and another woman named Julia. Apparently Julia Child didn't like this woman's blog very much. She went and did all of Julia Child's recipes or something, but I digress. Anyway, Julia Child, her big philosophy was that, all people can cook and they need to cook. They should learn how to do this. It's a basic skill that enriches human life, I suppose. I think I'm quoting her warmly and accurately on that. I feel the same way about writing. It's a skill that everyone should have. And it's an essential skill for the college-educated person moving into the workforce. No matter what your major is, you will be required to write and effectively communicate using the written word. There's no question about this. I believe that there's no magic solution to this process. It's not mystical or strange or anything like that. It's just following a simple set of practices. And if you follow said practices, you might not ever be a great writer, but you can certainly be a competent writer. And this is what everyone should be shooting for getting out of college. You don't have to be brilliant when you write, but you need to be concise, you need to be clear and well organized. If you can do those things, you will progress and get better as you practice your writing, but you have to have those fundamentals. And the purpose of this lecture and others in the series, as they come out, will be to help you understand the processes you need to go through to be an effective writer. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and talk about what's really at stake here. Get my pen going. There's Mizzou Zone, Don Draper, John Hamm, Mizzou alum. This particular page just talks about the importance of being able to write. And as I say right here, fair or no, right here, I say it, whether it's fair or not, let's get my pen working here, there we go. Whether it's fair or if it's not fair, right there, if you can't write clearly and effectively, you're not going to have the respect you deserve from your peers. And I'm sorry to put it to you that way, but it's just true. No matter how clever you are, how brilliant you are, if you can't sit down and put together a good report or an overview of some project or an email in a way that people can understand what you're talking about, you're going to have problems. You're going to get passed over for different things. I mean, it's just not going to be a good situation because this is an essential skill. It's something you should be learning in college. And this is one of the reasons why in my own department, Classical Studies, we are particularly tough on people with writing intensive courses because we know how important this skill is. All of us as professors have it, and we want you to learn it from us. And the only way that you learn is through tough, rigorous instruction. There's just no other way to do it. You can't imagine preparing for any other aspect of your life by, just kind of giving a half-hearted effort. It's like, you say you're on if you're in high school and you're on a football team and the coach said, we're just going to watch a couple of movies for the first game, and maybe we'll kind of think about some plays. We'll do a little scrimmaging. We're not going to really train all that much. You're going to go out and you're going to get, destroyed the first opponent you play. Well, with writing instruction, it's a similar thing, except the opponent is life itself. When you leave college, you need to have these tools. It's like, it's like being a good swordsman or something like that. If you were living in, medieval times, you want to be able to defend yourself using words and to be able to get ideas across. This is an important skill in the 21st century workplace. And throughout this course, you are going to get prepared for that. I am not going to allow you to be a weak writer. If you are a weak writer, you're going to know that you need to improve. And I'm going to help you improve, but we are going to be demanding because there's simply too much at stake in the world today to let this go by the wayside. It's just absolutely essential that I help you become a better writer, and I'm committed to doing that. So let's just get right down to brass tacks here and talk about the pre-writing response. Now, a lot of people don't think of the pre-writing response at all when they write. You know, you view a film that you're supposed to see, or read a book, or read a poem, and then you get a prompt from your instructor. You kind of look at the prompt, and then you start writing. This is a recipe for disaster. You've got to spend a lot of time. It's probably about, guys, it's about a 50-50 proposition. You need to spend as much time pre-writing as you do writing, and I'm sure that for many of you that's not the case. It's more like 15-85 or something like that. If you spend and invest time in this pre-writing process, I will guarantee you two things. One, you'll have a better sense of confidence when you begin writing for sure, and you'll know what you're doing. You'll have a plan. And second, I'm believing you're going to get better results because the elements that you need to put on the page to do well in the course and respond to the prompt, they're going to be there because you're going to make sure they're there well before you start writing. So this is time well spent. Now, the first stage is reading and assimilation, and I'm using this word data. I want you guys to think of whatever you're looking at. If you're looking at a film, if you're reading a book, reading a poem in a humanities class, think of that as your data set, especially if you're scientific minded. This is your data set. This is how you're going to prove whatever assertions you're going to make about whatever you're asked to write about. So to understand your data set, you have to spend time with it. So you have to read, take the time to carefully read whatever it is you're supposed to read. Or if you're viewing a film or a play, view that with care. Take notes. Be an active participant in that process. So you get a handle on what's going on with your data. As I say, it needs to be thoroughly digested. I think I have it right here. Thoroughly studied and digested before you start working. It's important, so give yourself enough time to process whatever it is you need to process before you even start thinking about the prompt and what you're going to do with it. Now, once you've got your data set, got a handle on that, then you move to the next phase, stage 2, which is looking at your topic, which would be your essay prompt for most humanities classes. And then you start to brainstorm on that topic. Now, what is brainstorming? It's one of the corniest words, I suppose, in the human language. I mean, or the English language, rather. Human language. Brainstorming is simply this. It's when you sit down and you get out any possible idea that's in your head and you get it on a piece of paper, or you get it onto, I don't know, if you use an e-device, like, you know, if you have an iPad and you like to take notes on your iPad, just getting it from your brain and fixed on some sort of medium that can be printed or referred to. Here we have a good example of an outline, kind of a very nice outline, if you will. This is the way outlining or brainstorming works. I'm sorry, outline comes next. Brainstorming, just get anything out there that you can possibly think of that could be of use. And you're not going to use all this stuff. It's not drafting, as I say right here. This is almost stream of consciousness. And the beautiful thing about brainstorming is it has absolutely no downside. It is a no-risk activity. You're just getting ideas out that you might come back to and say, that sounded crazy when I first thought of it, but maybe I can work that into a better idea. And then you continue to work with that idea, and you brainstorm that idea more and more and more. It's a casual process, as I say. You can do it almost anywhere. You can brainstorm between breaks in your favorite TV show. You know, if you don't, who likes to listen to the commercials? You know, I certainly don't. You can do it almost anywhere. This is how you get the content, though, guys, for your essay. This is where it all comes from, because writing is an entirely creative process. It all comes from you. You've got your data set, which you have to use to prove your assertions. But you are not going to be retelling the story, say, retelling what goes on in a play, or retelling what goes on in an ancient epic or a film. You're going to get dinged for that. That is not analysis, and that is not analytical writing. What you use your data set for is to prove your own ideas. So first thing I want everyone to think about is when you sit down and you start to work on a paper project, this is all coming from you. Your ideas have to be at the forefront, and the only way to figure out what you are thinking about a prompt that's been given to you is to conduct some sort of brainstorming exercise. It's absolutely critical in developing content, and it cannot in any way, shape, or form be passed by if you hope to do well at whatever assignment you're working on. Now, as I say here, brainstorming is a very personal process. You can do it any number of ways. People use diagrams, short sentences, you can doodle, you can draw, you can do whatever you like. Here are 3 links, and I think these will probably be, I don't know if they'll be hot in the Tegrity lecture, but University of North Carolina Writing Center has a nice link for brainstorming. The OWL Center at Purdue, and Wikipedia even has an article on brainstorming. So you can check out any number of these. Also, for this course, look in the Writing Lab. I'm sure there's a handout on brainstorming, or perhaps even some sort of a link to a website on brainstorming. So if you're not familiar with the technique, if you want to figure out what technique is right for you, you've got to go do this. And guys, this is something else I want to tell you about writing. Writing is such an individualized process. There are basics that I can teach you, but you have to come up with the way that works best for you. You've got to do brainstorming. How you do it and how someone else that you know might be in a class with you do it, you might do it totally different ways. It's okay. It's got to be personal to you. It has to make sense to you, because if it doesn't make sense to you, what's the point? You have to have something you can relate to. So if it's just stream of consciousness writing and then you circle things, or if you do diagrams or whatever it is that you do, come up with a system that works for you and just keep working at it. You've got to do that to work up your ideas. Now, after you've done this, there's Ernest, after you've done this, you go to outlining. Now, some of you probably don't outline, many of you probably don't, and you don't like the idea of outlining. Well, let me just bust your bubble, because I'm here to do it. Everybody outlines. I outline. People who write complex things, you must outline. There's no way around it. So regardless of what your high school teacher let you get away with, or even some lower level writing instructors let you get away with, forget it. You must outline, because your outline is your map to your entire project. And the more complex your prompt is, the more you're going to need an outline, because there is simply no way, I'm telling you, in no uncertain terms, even the good writers out there, there's no way you can properly navigate an essay without having some sort of an outline to work from. It might not be much of an outline, but you've got to have something. If it's a short enough piece and it's not complex, like writing a letter to your grandma, you can hold the outline in your head. Okay, I'll buy that. But I'll tell you, the things that I'm going to be putting in front of you this semester, you must outline to do well. If you don't want to do well, don't outline. But it's a recipe for disaster, because you're not going to have proper lines of argumentation, which we'll talk about in a second. So if you're anti-outlining, just get over it and start doing it. There's just no two ways about it. Now let's talk about the thesis. You guys all know this from high school. You have to have some sort of a thesis statement, a strong, what's often also called a controlling idea. If you don't like the word thesis, it's the same thing. The controlling idea of your paper, what's it all about? So if you have a prompt that you're working from, it's going to be your tack on how you answer the question your professor in this or any other class puts before you. You have to have a succinct statement to work from, because this is what everything that follows in your paper depends on, that you hold to this thesis statement that you make. It's got to be a single, unified idea that's easily stated. Usually comes at the end of your introductory paragraph, and it must be well developed, and it has to be clear. So let's have a look at how your outline should look. Now, this was drawn off of the interweb, and you can kind of peruse this. This is a pretty good outline. You've got a nice thesis statement right on top there. Notice how detailed it is. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. It encompasses a single general idea that you are going to flesh out in your essay. Then, after you have your thesis statement targeted, you've got that going on right there, you can come up with all of the other things, as this person does, forming a straight line of argument with details. All of this is a good outline. It tells you exactly what you're going to talk about. You're not fully writing the paper, but you're putting in a roadmap to what you are going to do. These topic sentences will help you keep on track. The topics will be developed into topic sentences, and then you can see that there is a uniform flow from the beginning of this paragraph, beginning of this work to the end that follows as direct line. This is what you have to have in a strong argumentative paper, and the use of an outline helps you achieve that. So let's move on here. So study this. This is the schematic representation of what a good essay does. Your intro paragraph introduces the topic to the reader, but it culminates in your thesis statement. Then you have your main body paragraphs. There don't have to be 4 of these or 3 of these, because we're taught in high school the 5-paragraph essay. It doesn't have to be that. Just, for a 750 or 1,000-word essay, you're going to have more than 5 paragraphs. If you have a 400-word essay, it might be less than that. It doesn't really matter, but you're going to have a main body that lies between your introduction and your conclusion. So the things about your main body paragraphs, you have to have good, strong topic sentences leading off each. Topic sentences that tell your reader exactly what you're going to talk about in each paragraph, a self-contained idea. It's fully developed inside of each paragraph, and then you string these topic sentences together with transitions between them to create a stable line of argument. And it concludes the last paragraph, which kind of ties everything together and leaves your reader with a sense of satisfaction. Sort of like dessert after a really good meal or something like that. So this is, again, take your time, study this. This is what you should be seeing when you read your paper back to yourself. All of these elements need to be there. All right. Now, lines of argumentation, what are they? These are the path that you take your reader through, so you can explain all of your ideas. If you don't have clean lines, your reader's going to get lost. And when this happens, you've lost the reader and you've lost your effectiveness as a writer. So this is one of the things when you proofread before you turn in your essays, you should always be looking for continuity from one paragraph to the other. How do they all line up? And again, the way that you make sure they do is you come up with a good, tight, concise outline. We're going to look at how this process works. Now let's do a little case study here. Catullus 85. This is one of my favorite poems. Since I've got you on audio here, I'll recite it to you in Latin. It goes in Latin: Oda ramo, quod faciam fortasse requiris, nescio sed fieri sentiat excupior. And that means, I hate and I love. Maybe you ask how I'm able to do it. I don't know, but I feel it happening and I am tortured. 2 lines. But anybody who's been in love ever, especially in high school, you can relate to this. This is considered one of his absolute finest efforts. But it's very short, so it suits our purposes here. You can pause this lecture, of course, at any time to read the text. But I'm just going to kind of keep going through and move to the next thing here. But this is Catullus 85. Now, let's say that you get this prompt, which I just kind of said. Scholars say 85 is one of Catullus' best efforts. 500-word essay based on your reading. What aspects make it successful? Be sure to support your ideas with specific references to the text, as always. Okay, so there's your prompt right there. What this is asking is basically what we would call a reader response type prompt. You don't have to argue that it's a good poem. We're conceding that it's successful. Why do you think it's successful? What aspects of the poem speak to you? What do you find good about it? So, stage 1, you read and you assimilate. Doesn't take too long because this is a 2-line poem, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing to the poem. Sure, that's easy. You can read and assimilate it. You can read the poem 10 times in 10 minutes, maybe more. So that's easy, but it doesn't mean that you're done. You got to sit down and think about what's being asked of you, and you got to brainstorm that. So here's what you should be thinking when you look at the prompt on the other page. Like, okay, well, this poem is good, for sure. My job is to say why I think it's good, not why other people think it's good. This is not asking you to read articles and go outside the poem. This is strictly reader response. It's asking for your opinion. But you have to say, you have to point to specific things in the text to prove why it's good. So this is your job. Now, notice, this is a simple assignment, but you already have to expend some thought on it. You've got to sit down and you have to say, okay, here's what I have to do. I've got a clear line of what I need to do. Now I've got to brainstorm this out and get my ideas together. So when you move to it, you might get something like this. And this is the way that I brainstormed this question, which is kind of weird. It's schizophrenic of me because I wrote it. Just have a study of this. This is, you don't have to do your brainstorming this way. This is the way that I typically like to do it. I've got at the top there, Lesbia, who is she? Maybe get some more info, Wikipedia. You don't have to do that, but it just came to my mind. I hate and I love, and you can just kind of look through what I've done there. So you've got idea of the poet being confused and all of this stuff. And then notice down here towards the very end, I start to line my ideas up. This is the beginning of a good outline. So you've got, it's a brief poem, it's emotional, there's word order. These are ideas that are starting to come together, and they're going to eventually form my outline. And this is what you guys should be doing in your brainstorming processes as well. Eventually you have to, what's the old expression? You got to fish or cut bait, one of the two at some point. You have to spend enough time with your ideas, and then you have to start eventually moving through them and saying, well, I like these best, and then I'm going to put them in this order or that order. So let's move on to that part. So when you start your outlining, you got to begin with your thesis statement for sure. You got to get your thesis statement together. Then you got to start thinking in terms of topic sentences, and then you outline the ideas that are going to go underneath those topic sentence heads. So you've got a couple of things that you need to do to make a good outline. And guys, I'm telling you, when you have this outline in your hand, in front of you, when you sit down and you see that cursor blinking, you are not going to be like, oh man, oh Jesus, this is due tomorrow, what am I going to do? You're going to be like, all right, I got this, mother, right now. I've got my outline, and then you've got your topic sentences, which should be already pretty much written. You can just, type those directly onto your screen, line up all of your ideas, and then just start fleshing everything out, making good, tight paragraphs that all work together. It is tremendously helpful to work from an outline. It eases your anxiety as a writer, if you have that, to come armed with a plan, and it really does help. So let's look and see what that might look like. So here's a good and a beginning to an outline. There's your thesis, and this comes from my brainstorming. So again, you could pause this lecture, you can go back and look at what I did more carefully, some of the great things about Tegrity. But my thesis would be, Catullus 85 is a particularly effective poem because it's able to convey an intense mixture of emotions: anger, confusion, and pain. 1, 2, 3. 3 things to talk about, okay? So, anger, confusion, and pain. Each of those must be addressed in separate paragraphs, separate topic sentences. So, I've got topic 1. Catullus begins the poem by immediately expressing the pain that the speaker in the poem is experiencing. And the reason I put speaker there, when people write poetry, they're not always thinking of themselves. They could be thinking of someone else. So we use that convention, the speaker. And then below it, I have a bulleted list of things I want to talk about. The juxtaposition of hate and love. The importance of hate being first over love. Placing of emphasis on negative emotion by the word order. That right there, guys, if you have those bulleted little lists, you can easily meld those and turn them into sentences. All you have to do is expand them a little bit, and each of your sentences are going to dovetail with the one before it, and they're going to build to a logical conclusion. Then the same thing with topic 2, and I'm not going to read all of that to you. You've got a solid transition there, and I guess this is worth talking about. After a convincing portrayal of the pain that the speaker is feeling, Catullus introduces the next negative emotion, confusion. Notice how these two go right together. This one, the second topic, doesn't refer back painstakingly, I guess, to topic 1, but it clearly closes out your first topic and moves to the second one. This establishes a good, easy to follow flow in your paper, what we call a good, strong line of argument. And then again, you have ideas that support this second idea, and on and on and on. As many ideas as you have, as long as or short as your paper is, you need that many topic sentences and topic paragraphs. It's all about the planning. Okay. So, if you look at the outline that is on the previous page, you can see all the stuff we talked about here. Clear thesis statement, how the topics line up, the proofs that you're going to need. And this is what makes a map for you. And as you progress through your writing with this map in hand, you're going to be able to be much, much more successful. And the harder and more complex the questions are that you encounter, the presence of your outline is going to be that much more important to you. So that's the end of this presentation. I hope it's given you some ideas. Please do look for additional help in the writing lab, and I will